That's right, Denny. I'm going to just try to turn a little bit to the, there's to the west. That's hills with the tail camera. And I'll keep turning and turning. There is a low clouds. I don't know if you can resolve it. Right there in the center of the picture, you'll see some rotation, low-hanging clouds possibly. The fire departments are out. I saw the fire people from Hills. It looks like they went north of town about a mile, and now they're heading westbound into the storm. So the fire departments are out, probably due to the warnings, and I'll keep turning here. Now,
okay, Bobby. Well, I'll tell you what, keep that shot. We want to go to Rob Cook. Rob?
Well, Denny, that shot that we were looking at, I don't know if you could see from Bobby in the background, you actually could see the tornado that was way out in the distance on the ground in the area, and it was inside the rain. So again, if we are seeing a tornado, this is a very dangerous one because it's buried within the rain itself, and it's going to be very difficult to see. There you can see it again as Bobby takes the shot live.
What you can look at is the rotation around that tornado that is on the ground that we are seeing live from Newscopter 9 right now. Bobby Ratliff bringing us the pictures. And Rob, as you said, dangerous situation at night, but equally as dangerous in a rain shield like that where you can't see it.
Exactly.
Oh, he sees it. He sees it right now. Bobby Ratliff sees the tornado. Bobby, take it away.
Okay, I'm going to show you. Right here it is. It's on the ground. Let's say it's approximately 3 or 4 miles north, northwest of Lone Tree where I am, and it looks like I'm going to be safe to get a little bit closer, and just stick with me here.
All right, but be careful. Be careful.
It's tracking northbound, and it's on the ground. It's pretty terrible.
Wow.
It's very black. A serious rotation. Okay, just stick with me.
Those of you in southern Johnson County, you need to get in safe shelter right now.
Yes.
The tornado is on the picture.
There it is. There it is, right there, highlighted against the light-colored clouds on the ground. Anybody back at Channel 9, roll tape on this, please.
I think you can safely say we are doing that. Bobby, do you get a sense that there is a rapid movement with this tornado?
Oh, this is a terrible tornado, Denny. It is about a quarter-mile wide. I don't know how long I'm going to keep getting closer on this.
Where are you located right now, Bobby? One more time, your location.
That tornado is
Hi, this is Rob Cook from
4 miles northwest of,
we've got our helicopter live
Lone Tree,
on the
where I
right
am.
now.
4 miles northwest of Lone Tree, heading northbound.
Okay, Jim, this is Jim, right?
Okay, this is heading
guys, I'm going to turn to the south. I'll talk to you later.
All right, Bobby, thank you. And Joe, this shows no signs right now of retreating back into the clouds. So this is a tornado on the ground. And folks, I cannot stress, you need to seek safety right now if you're in the tornado warning areas. I mean, right now.
4 miles to the northwest of Lone Tree, a tornado confirmed by Newscopter 9 on the ground. It looked like a pretty wide tornado. This is one that will do a lot of damage. These storms have had a history of producing winds in excess of 90 miles per hour. Add in the movement of the storms, and you are looking at a very, very dangerous situation. Southern Johnson County is the area right now. Those of you in western Muscatine and western Cedar County, this is where this storm is moving toward. Watch out as you move up toward the Lone Tree area, where is exactly where Bobby has been showing us that tornado on the ground live. Now just issued a western Muscatine County, a tornado warning is in effect for those of you in western Muscatine County as this same storm continues to push to the east. They're estimating that the width of this tornado that we were watching live from Newscopter 9 at about a quarter-mile wide.
And Joe, one thing to note, it's probably moving across some farm fields, which makes it look even more awesome too. It actually sucks in the dirt of the fields and can add some dramatic luster to an already dangerous situation.
Is this thing headed for Iowa City? Is it headed for Iowa City?
Well, Bobby was asking if it's headed toward Iowa City. Rob, you've been watching. What do you think?
Well, at least from our vantage point, I would say unless it takes a due north course, it should stay generally on the extreme eastern side of Iowa City. If it does hit Iowa City at all, at least on the course that it's on now. But at least from our visual and the movement on radar, Bobby, it has been northeast. And that should keep it on the extreme eastern edge of Iowa City if it affects it at all.
Bobby, I thought I heard you say you detected a northward movement of the tornado due north. Am I right on that?
I did, Denny. That worries me. You know, I'm worried about staying clear of the tornado, so forgive me if I don't have my position totally right. I am right now just a couple miles north of Lone Tree still. but it looked to me like it was straight north, straight north. I'm very worried, Denny.
All right, very good. Bobby, take care of yourself out there. That's first and
Oh, I'm not
foremost.
worried about me. I'm
Okay.
worried about the people in Iowa City.
All right, well, we're going to be watching that very carefully.
If you cannot get to a basement or have none available to you, the place you need to go is into a hallway, an interior room. Put as many walls between yourself and the storm as possible, and wait till that storm passes, again covering yourself with a blanket or pillow. That's if you're indoors, and of course Rob gave you great advice if you are outdoors, particularly from Iowa City over toward West Branch as we move into western areas of Cedar County. Let's go back to Captain
Right
Bobby
away,
Ratliff
he has
live.
a shot of the tornado. Bobby, come in.
That's right, Denny, and Joe, tornado's still on the ground. It's a little harder to see. That's the tail end of it right there. It's still on the ground. It looks like it's grown in size. That's not good news. It is still rotating. It is still on the ground. It's full of dust and dirt now. This is amazing, but I saw a piece of a barn. It must have been at 3,000 or 4,000 feet above me. Of course, 1 or 2 miles away at a safe distance. But I saw a piece of a barn floating through the air like a hot air balloon. This storm is still on the ground. That is the one edge of it. It's hard to discern from the dust and probably topsoil that's in the air. I'm going to keep flying this direction.
Bobby, real quickly, can you give us some indication, orientate us where you are?
Well, actually, I can't. I have to admit, I'm just focusing more on. Well, I can actually tell you that I'm 8 miles to the. Let's see, to the southwest of Iowa City Airport. So that's what I can tell you right now.
It certainly looks like this has grown in size as well, Bobby. I will agree with you on that. And Rob and I were just talking, and you hear about the F scale as far as storms. The size of this storm, just by looking at your pictures, looks like it may put it in the F3 category at this point, and that is a very, very dangerous storm, as you've been mentioning.
We have a map of the storm's path and the hardest hit areas of Washington and Johnson counties. The information we have right now is that the storm injured at least 25 people in Washington County. A spokesperson at the Washington County Hospital says they treated and released 24 people and transferred another one to the University of Iowa hospitals and clinics. A spokesman for the U of I hospitals tells us they now have 4 storm victims in the emergency room there.
We have had no reports of anyone being killed by the storm, but the damage from it, as you'll see in our storm team coverage tonight, is incredible. We begin our coverage with video recorded just as the twister moved through Johnson County.
These are pictures from Newscopter 9 and Captain Bobby Ratliff. He describes what he saw as it happened.
I see it. It's on the ground. I see it. I see it. I see it. Okay, I'm going to show you right here. It is. It's on the ground. Let's say it's approximately 3 or 4 miles northwest of Lone Tree, where I am, and it looks like I'm going to be safe to get a little bit closer, and just stick with me here. It's tracking it. It's tracking northbound, and it's on the ground. It's pretty terrible. It's very black. A serious rotation. Okay, just stick with me. Yes. There it is. There it is, right there, highlighted against the light color clouds on the ground. Anybody back at Channel 9, roll tape on this, please. Oh, this is a terrible tornado, Denny. It is about a 1/4 mile wide. I don't know how long I'm going to keep getting closer on this. That tornado is 4 miles northwest of Lone Tree, where I am. 4 miles northwest of Lone Tree, heading northbound.
And that tornado kept moving in that direction and took out many, many farm homes and outbuildings, as we saw. But before that, it had already struck the community of Washington.
That's right, and that is where TV9's Dave Fransman and Mike Wagner are tonight. We'll start with Dave Fransman. He has a ground level look at the devastation. Dave?
Well, Kelly and Bruce, again, Washington is sort of the epicenter of the bad weather that has been going throughout this part of Iowa during the earlier part of the day today. again, the tornadoes that you mentioned were hitting everywhere, but they really did seem to kind of center here. And in fact, they started out perhaps on the south end of town where there was a number of scenes of destruction. Now, nearly every window in Betty Porter's home was blown out by the tornado, but the single strangest thing that we saw in here happened in the upstairs bathroom. There were postcards and other memorabilia that had blown in from somewhere else, another home. Now, just north of Washington, that's the home of 82-year-old Verna Crone here. There was a total scene of devastation. Neighbors hurried to clear away the debris and round up the livestock. Crone's daughter had just arrived from Minnesota an hour before the tornado hit.
And it was, I don't know, I can't describe it. You know, people say it's like a train, but it wasn't. I didn't hear anything that sounded like a train except earlier there was this rumble in the sky. And so I said, I'm going to go outside here and look, and all of a sudden I could see, I couldn't see because there was this big tree right here, and I could see behind it, I stepped off the porch, just this black funnel on the ground. And I said, Mom, I yelled at her and I said, Mom, we have to get to the basement. And so I just dragged her and we went to the basement, and we just stood there clutching each other, and things were just blowing at us, and it was over just like that. And I came upstairs, and there's not a building left. There's not a building left except her house, and we're just lucky that she has what she has left, and we're lucky we're alive.
Now, by most accounts, the tornado gathered speed again in the south part of Washington. One park along Highway 92 was a mass of torn limbs and debris. Again, a very emotional scene for many people here. Homes were just knocked by the tremendous winds in a path perhaps a quarter-mile wide. But one paramedic who actually lost his own home here tonight says the injury situation could have been much worse.
In the north end of town where we were at, it's amazing. There's several houses that are completely destroyed. There's nothing left. That we're pulling people out of basements. Most people were really shook up.
Now, as you mentioned, Iowa Governor Terry Branstad is here in Washington. We have been told that he may be able to come to this part of the town. Perhaps we can talk to him on the air at some point a little bit later. He is looking at the northern end of Washington right now, and that was the area that Mike Wagner had been studying, and again, that was the scene of some pretty good devastation there.
It was, Dave, probably an area several blocks up there in northern Washington, the city of, and that's where a lot of people who are homeless this evening are going to be staying. We have a phone number to give you, so if you have loved ones in this town and you are trying to reach them or trying to get information about them, that you can call that number to get information. It is either the number you see there on your screen, 319-430-1670. That is the phone number for the Army Reserve Center. That is where right now they say there are at least 50 people who they're expecting to spend the night, and expecting at least many more, as much of the town of Washington is without power, and many people this evening are homeless. Now, as we go to some of the video now, after the storm that hit the south side of town, it then roared northward, apparently just seemingly skipping over the downtown area and landing here in this area, this home. The people had just moved in last November. The family is expecting a child in September. They were not home, so they were very happy at that time. Other homeowners say that they had just left work. They got home, got down in the basement, got under their stairs, huddled, and all of a sudden the storm roared through and sucked the top of the house off from them. They say right now tonight they are very thankful to be alive. And one family even told me that they just moved the house that was destroyed today from Muscatine a year ago. They spent close to $100,000 renovating the home, and now it's destroyed. Here are some of the comments from other people living in the north side of town.
Channel 9 News was saying there was tornado warnings out, and I went to the door and watched the sky, and when I seen debris coming, I headed for the basement.
What did this thing sound like? They say these things sound like trains.
It did. A very big roar. And then when I got to the bottom of the basement, glass started flying.
Was the house shaking, that kind of thing?
Dust was blowing in our basement and glass was coming down. So yeah, it sounded like a freight train.
I guess, what do you think when you look at this neighborhood now?
It's unbelievable. It's just lucky nobody was hurt very bad.
And that's really the word that we're hearing throughout Washington, is that most of the injuries are minor. Many of the people are reporting injuries, scratches, bumps, and bruises from blowing debris and glass. On the north side of town tonight, they're expecting 90 National Guardsmen to come in and guard the area. There was some minor looting, but the sheriff says that the guardsmen are going to come in to protect the area. We even saw tonight prisoners from the Washington County Jail out helping clear debris. We saw bike cops patrolling the area. There isn't power on the north side of town. Right now, the wind is whipping up again, so for a lot of people, as the people that Dave spoke with and the people that I spoke with on the north side of town, right now this has to be a very edgy time as the sun has gone down. They don't have power. They're back in their homes or maybe in an emergency shelter, and the winds are whipping up again, although hopefully not as strong as they were earlier today. Kelly, Bruce?
It's amazing to see people, as you know, with all the destruction, all the devastation, that they still have that spirit. We're going to rebuild, we're going to put our lives back together. And I guess what makes that possible is the fact that there has not been loss of life.
Well, that's true. It does help the situation. And one thing, of course, out in the rural areas where we were earlier, a little bit north of the town of Washington itself, that one farmhouse we were showing you, there must have been 30 or 40 people out there rounding up the livestock and starting to clear away some of the debris. And it happened within minutes, literally. And that's what you do expect in an area like this.
Thanks, Dave Franzman and Mike Wagner reporting live from Washington, Iowa tonight. Probably some of the worst damage, the only real the community that was hit by this tornado today.
Absolutely. Well, Johnson County was also hit, and that's where Scott Sable and John Campbell were earlier tonight along Highway 6, and Scott joins us now. Scott?
Yeah, Bruce and Kelly, the folks in Iowa City are very lucky tonight. This tornado missed their city by just 5 miles. It did hit Jim Lang's farm 5 miles southeast of Iowa City. If we can take a look at some of the damage there. On Highway 6, Jim and his wife and 3 children were on the porch when they saw the tornado, made a mad dash to the basement just in time. There you see their flattened barn. That is actually a blanket from their bedroom. I found their post from their bed about 30 miles, or not 30 miles, 30 yards from the house. There was a couple driving along Highway 6 in their car. They tried to make a run to Jim's farmhouse, did not make it, and they were injured by flying debris. We do not know the extent of their injuries. Here's what Jim had to say right after the tornado hit. Where were you when it touched down, or when you noticed that it was headed this way?
Standing on the front porch watching it. When I realized it was coming straight at us, so I headed for the basement.
You got several kids?
Yeah, 3 of them were here at the time, and we all got in the basement. Just like a explosion. I mean, the windows, you could hear them all blowing out of the house, and it only lasted a minute. That's all it took.
What did the thing look like?
Oh, it was a quarter-mile wide. It was huge. I just got home from work, and my wife said, you know, there's tornado warnings out. My ex-mother-in-law called and said Lone Tree had warnings down here. Well, I watched it for a half hour. You could see it plain as day coming. I figured, well, it's going to go one way or the other. But it come right straight at us.
You feeling lucky or unlucky right now?
Very lucky right now. Very lucky. I'm just, thank God, we're all safe. I was real concerned about the 2 people they took to the hospital. I haven't heard how they are. But
who was that?
There was 2 people just as a tornado got here. They ran for the house.
Oh, driving on the highway?
Yeah.
And they were injured?
Yeah.
Badly, do you know? Or?
I don't know.
They didn't get in the house?
No. They didn't.
The extent of their injuries, but Jim and his family very happy tonight that they are safe and healthy. Back to you guys.
Well, it's again, the spirit of these people is just unbelievable. You can rebuild. Mm-hmm. You can rebuild. That's the one thing I think all of these people are realizing tonight. And as Mr. Lang said, they are lucky that
they walked away with their lives.
Walked away.
You bet.
Well, the storm continued on through parts of Johnson County today.
That's right, and that is where TV9's Jenna Miller found that the damage and the cleanup also continue.
Just below the southern Johnson County border, the storm touched down and tore through this farmhouse, leaving only kitchen appliances standing.
This hasn't happened under as long as I've been on the fire department, so It's probably been close to 15 years.
Riverside Fire Chief Randy Sexton joined 100 other people, helping their neighbor pick up the pieces.
We're trying to keep traffic down. There's a lot of people driving around.
Many rescue crews working well into darkness had to stay on the job to make sure everyone stayed safe. The Lone Tree Fire Department blocked off this rural road fearing an explosion after flying debris punctured a propane tank.
It's leaking pretty good right now, but there's enough wind to dissipate it as long as we keep the sparks away from it. Any down power lines or anything that'll make a spark would cause a fire and probably an explosion.
Teddy Wallace heard what sounded like an explosion as she traveled east on Highway 80. She and her husband pulled over.
Some people were crying. There were some ladies that on the other side of us that were crying, but it was just, you could just see like branches and stuff up in the air, way up in the air. I've never seen anything like that.
And victims of this storm hope they never again see something like this. Jenna Miller, KCRG TV 9 News, Netcast.
The Lone Tree Fire Department, by the way, wants to thank its citizens for their cooperation and their compassion as they were working to take care of all of this devastation today.
Incredible devastation. Well, as many of you know, it has been a very busy afternoon and evening in the TV9 Weather Lab.
The TV9 storm alert, or fast alert storm team, that's it, has been on the air live since around 4:15 this afternoon, and meteorologists Denny Frary and Joe Winters are still there, and they join us now.
Well, I'll tell you, Bruce and Kelly, we were talking about this, and I've been at this station nearly 25 years, and yes, I have seen devastating tornadoes before, but not with the technology we have available to us today. So that has been a rather remarkable experience. I'm glad we could kind of all share that together. The best thing I can talk to you about right now is a live shot from TV9's First Alert Pinpoint Doppler radar, and that shows generally clear skies all over eastern Iowa, certainly dry conditions. We are seeing showers and thunderstorms moving into north central Illinois and southeastern Wisconsin right there, and they're moving quickly to the northeast at still around 50 miles an hour. High pressure is moving in, and that bodes well for the coming weekend, perhaps through most of Monday as well. So at least we'll have some time in areas that need it to recover. And Joe Winters has been right beside me throughout, and Joe, this has been quite a day.
It's been quite a day across the entire state of Iowa. In fact, we'll take a look at our Midwest Doppler radar loop, and this is since early this morning all the way through the current time. And you'll notice, first of all, what we watched was a batch of storms with a lot of straight-line winds move across western Iowa and cause damage. Then watch the explosion of storms that develop here and move across east central Iowa, producing the damage that we've seen. A very fast-moving storm that started about 10 o'clock this morning in western Iowa, ended about 8 o'clock this evening. To just illustrate how fast the storms were moving as they pushed across eastern Iowa, we'll take a look at our lightning tracker and watch how quickly these storms move from about 4 o'clock this afternoon, developing and moving quickly and racing into southern areas of Wisconsin. Not as much lightning as you would expect with the storms, but when you have storms moving at 50 miles per hour, certainly that development is not necessarily the case all the time, and in this case it was the more high winds and some large hail and the tornadoes certainly that was the result of these storms.
We saw this coming for a number of days, but I don't think we could possibly imagine this kind of devastation.
Certainly not.
Yeah, but anyway, that's it from the TV9 Weather Lab. We'll come back with a First Alert forecast and a 7-day, which I think generally you'll be pleased with, Bruce and Kelly, but right now back to you.
Thank you, Denny and Joe. Well, as we have been talking about, Newscopter 9 was out there today covering the terrible storm as it moved through eastern Iowa.
And when we come back, Captain Bobby Ratliff talks about the experience from the air. Nightcast continues on your 24-hour news source, KCRG TV 9.
Boy, if you've been watching our coverage through the afternoon, late afternoon and evening, you know what a valuable resource Newscopter 9 was for us today in shooting the path of this tornado and also the destruction afterwards, seeing exactly what that tornado did to so many people.
The view you can't get anywhere else. And Bobby, you were there in the middle of the action. I could tell you were very excited yet concerned for the people in the tornado's path this afternoon.
Very concerned. I've never seen anything like this before in my life. I was amazed at the violence and the destruction that Mother Nature can bring to eastern Iowa and Iowa. I've got some video of that we have of me spotting the tornado live on TV9. Now this was 4 miles northwest of Lone Tree when I spotted it. Now when I was getting fuel in Washington Airport, it was obviously going through Washington. I took off and ran across this very large tornado, at least a 1/4 mile across. I mean, it was just full of topsoil and debris. And it was also amazing to me to see farmers planting corn as this tornado went by them. Obviously on the tractors with no radios, the tractors are noisy, and I guess a tornado just passed them on one side or the other. I thought that was amazing, and it made all the typical circular formations on the ground. We have video of it to the southwest of Washington, where I think the tornado was born. I couldn't find any more damage any further from Washington than about 1 mile southwest, and that would be about half a mile southwest of the Walmart where I saw the first home that was thoroughly destroyed. Now that's just right next to the Walmart right there in that part of Washington. Now I've got the very worst destruction in Washington. Now that was to the north of Washington, right north of downtown, and that was where the apartment building was thoroughly damaged in homes right there, and you can see the rescue workers clearing away debris from that apartment complex, and there were people who had to be pulled out of there. So it was just very, very concerned. I was concerned for people on the ground. I was concerned for my safety. I saw while the tornado was in the sky, if we can go back to the video of the tornado possibly, I looked up. Now remember, I have to say, video is one thing, but when you were there live, for the people who saw it on the ground, for me who saw it from the air, it's nothing that they will ever forget. I will never forget it. It did not do it. Video does not do it justice. If it looked like I was close in the video, I felt a whole lot closer to that tornado in real life. I looked up, I saw large parts of barns circling above me, pieces of aluminum circulating. You can see at the very top of the video, a tornado gets very much bigger as it comes away from the ground, and all that is rotating. And it appears, because of the distance, that it's going in slow motion, even though it might be going hundreds of miles an hour, and you got to be careful and not be lured into that. And I looked up and I saw an amazing number of man-made objects all suspended in that cloud, and that's when I decided to back away, Bruce and Kelly.
Bobby, we've had a lot of, excuse me, a lot of people calling in and emailing us who were expressing concern about your safety up there, but that's one thing that you're very aware of at all times, isn't it?
Well, that's right. I didn't go any closer. You see, I do make that decision not to go any closer. It was not raining. It was not very turbulent. I was on the southeast side. I mean, I do know a little bit about meteorology, and of course everything is different. Denny and Joe and Scott and Rob will all tell you that they're all different. Not one is alike, like a snowflake. But I do know the basic mechanics of it, and just like Joe and Denny do, and you make the best judgments. And there was something to be gained from that risk-taking. We discovered the tornado. We spotted it on radar. Then other people spotted it. I showed visual pictures of it, and hopefully that made people realize that it was a serious situation. And you know, I think that's a risk worth taking.
Now, Bobby, you said that this is something you'll never forget, and I could tell as you were flying over Washington, watching the increasing devastation, that it affected you.
It did affect me. In a way, I just didn't want to see anymore. It's real. If you see it on TV, just try to remember that it's real. And when you see it in person, it's a little bit overwhelming, you know, a little bit unfair, it seems like, to the people that it happens to. Maybe that's the bad part. It just seems unfair.
Yeah, that is one thing we have to remember, that we're looking at that from a distance, and it kind of cleans it up in a way for us watching it on TV as opposed to you seeing it in person. And there are real people down there who have been affected by this. We've heard from some of them tonight, and all of us are extremely concerned about their welfare and how they and their families are handling all of this, and it is overwhelming.
None of the terror and fright and sadness comes through the TV to the viewers. But you know, you can get some of that from seeing it live in person and when it really happens. And when I'm sure when you meet people who it's occurred to, and I've seen some great interviews done by the reporters here at Channel 9, I think that really conveys the feelings of what it's like to be hit by a major tornado.
I think so many of the people, Bobby, are still in shock.
I think they are too, and they will be. You know, I'm amazed that, you know, it's part of Channel 9's job to sort of tally up and figure out exactly where it started and how much damage was done. And I'm in a helicopter. It goes 120 miles an hour, and I could not pin it all down. And that kind of bothers me too. I don't know where I know where it began. It began about in Washington. Where did it end? How big was it? How much damage was totally done? And it's going to take a while to figure all that out.
Definitely. It's an awesome, excuse me, my voice is going. It's an awesome part of Mother Nature's wrath in a way, and it's unbelievable to see it, and we certainly thank you for all of your efforts today, Bobby, because you just an outstanding job up there.
Phenomenal.
People don't realize that you're not just flying the helicopter, but you're also operating that camera
Triple duty.
And reporting
That's
as well.
right.
I know. When I do a lot of appearances, people know I do go to a lot of schools, and I'll be at Camp Courageous on Sunday. I always try to point that out, and I guess go for a little sympathy, because it's pretty tough to do all that all at the same time. But I'm pretty proud of what I did today, and I hope people agree with me. I hope I helped. That's what I want. I wanted to help. And you know, I was visiting at a school just the other day, and I said, well, the people asked me what I wanted to do, and I wondered, well, I'd like to catch a tornado and be able to warn people that a tornado was approaching, and one day later, I got my wish.
Well, hopefully that helped save some lives today, because it did help put the warning out, but even more so, hopefully it'll help people understand how important it is to pay attention to those warnings when they do come out, even if they were far, far from the path of this tornado
That's
today.
right. And maybe, and people will also want to help. They will call the Red Cross and make donations. And they won't feel the need to go drive around and interfere with the emergency crews. So they can watch it on Channel 9 and see as much as they really need to see.
Well, again, thank you, Bobby. Bobby Ratliff doing just an outstanding job today from Newscopter 9.
Thanks, Bobby.
We have some photographs that have just come into the TV9 newsroom of the tornado this afternoon in Washington County.
This apparently was near Lone Tree, and David Bowman took these still pictures, I understand.
A whole series of them. This is near Lone Tree is where Newscopter 9 pilot Bobby Ratliff first saw the massive tornado as it was moving along.
You can really see it there against the light clouds.
And that's the last photograph that we have, those shot by David Bowman. Again, the picture of the tornado moving near Lone Tree this afternoon. We're going to go back down to the community of Washington now.
That's right. That's where Dave Franzman and Mike Wagner are. What's the latest, guys?
Well, at this point, we can tell you that Iowa Governor Terry Branstad has left the area a little bit earlier, and we've understood that there were going to be some changes in terms of security measures. But first, I wanted to show you a little bit of the power of this tornado. This was a motorcycle helmet at one time. Now, this is a pretty sturdy thing, but as you can see, it bounced around a little bit, and there's not much left of this. So those are the kind of things that we're talking about that were going on down here. I guess somebody could probably calculate how much force would it take to crack a very substantial motorcycle helmet like this by bashing it around, and that's the kind of thing that we were dealing with down here in the folks. Now, let me turn it over to Mike Wagner again. The governor has left a little while earlier after a tour of the area. I understand now there are some new things that are going to be happening in terms of providing security here.
Some of the security changes, there were some MPs who were training in Des Moines, and now the governor has moved them here to Washington tonight, and they will be arriving around midnight, and then another wave of them will be arriving around 2 a.m. This group of MPs is going to be helping out and relieving a lot of the sheriff's deputies and the members of the auxiliary who have been out for much of today patrolling the area, keeping things locked up and keeping things in place as best as they can. A lot of work from the police department here, the fire department, the volunteers. Also, a lot of people from a lot of other communities sent rescue teams here. We saw ambulances from as far away as Columbus Junction and Benton County that were down here helping out today, because the ambulance shed for the Washington County Ambulance Service is about 3 blocks from where we are. The twister hit their shed and knocked out 2 of their rigs. They were down for a while. One of them they were able to get up and running again, but we understand another one of them is down right now. Now, there's a phone number that we have for people who have family in Washington and are trying to find out information about them. That number is 319-430-1670. That's for the Army Reserve Center on North Marion Street here in Washington. If you have someone you're looking for, that is a good number to call to hopefully find them. Again, the number is 319-430-1670. And in closing tonight, Dave, you know, we were just talking to a woman here who said she was driving down to Washington from Iowa City. The storm came out and they jumped into a ditch, hoping to, you know, basically weather out the storm. They huddled together with some other motorists on the road, and she said it was scary, it was frightening, especially when you're trying to hold on to nothing. She said they were just in the ditch hoping to get through it, and like a lot of people here in Washington tonight, they're grateful they're alive. The injuries are minimal, the damage is great, but there is tomorrow, and everybody's going to start cleaning up and moving on from here.
All right, thanks, Mike. And Dave Franzen reporting live from Washington tonight.
And our thoughts and prayers, of course, go out to all of the victims of today's tornado. They are going to be waking up tomorrow morning and seeing just an unbelievable job ahead of them as they try to put their lives back together.
Definitely.
That's right, I did, Gerald. I saw the path of destruction. I'm here live in Washington, and this is where I think the tornado began its destructive path. Now, I've got some video that will show you the destruction as it leaves Washington County and heads toward Johnson County. Look at this grove of trees. Look how the tornado turned it into a bunch of just giant toothpicks. It was incredible. It narrowly missed the town of Lone Tree where I spotted it, just a little bit to the northwest. Now you can see the path of the tornado as it created a windrow of corn and stubble and debris. Now there that is. Isn't that just, I mean, that's incredible. You could track it across the ground. Now it didn't take long for me to find the string of damaged and destroyed farmhouses. This severe devastation was only about 3 miles east of Iowa City at one time. Now if you follow the path, it heads straight like an arrow for the heart of West Branch. Now amazingly, 2 miles southwest of town, the tornado lifted. And obviously here in Washington, the people are enduring right now below me in Washington. They're enduring what West Branch was spared, and that is a live picture below me of the hardest hit neighborhood here in Washington. There are a lot of media on the ground. The cleanup is well underway. It looks to me like there's a lot of people to help. Sometimes you can see just the concrete slabs left over from where a house used to be in this neighborhood, Gerald. So a lot of progress here on this Saturday. Probably a lot of volunteers and a lot of great weather cooperating, and hopefully Washington is on its way to recovery. Back to you.
Bobby, I think you answered our question. Basically, the cleanup is well underway, and it looks much differently than it did 24 hours ago.
I was amazed. Wow, they're working fast. And all along the path of the tornado, it looks like in the rural counties, the rural people are burning a lot of the debris, probably just a lot of wood and stuff, and they're choosing to burn it. So, and like last night, there was a string of flashing emergency vehicle lights. Today, there are columns of black smoke.
Okay. Thank you, Bobby. That's TV9's Bobby Ratliff reporting live from Newscopter 9 over Washington County. Governor Terry Branstad declared Washington County a state disaster area. 2 Iowa emergency management disaster teams, along with the National Guard and the Red Cross, are helping victims. Guard members brought in specialized equipment to clear large piles of debris. Many other eastern Iowans are pitching in or offering to help, but some onlookers are simply getting in the way.
Out of here, we're trying to shuttle people up with the help of the Washington County minibus. We're trying to keep traffic down from the volunteers as much as possible. I know people want to see it, but please wait.
Our first alert storm team coverage continues with TV9's Mark Thomas, who joins us now live from Washington County. And Mark, are authorities able to keep sightseers out of the damaged neighborhoods?
Well, Gerald, we're here on East 15th Street on the north side of Washington, and we have seen some traffic throughout the area here, but I wouldn't call it a parade or anything like that with sightseers. It looks like the National Guard and local law enforcement, at least on this side of town, this part of town, they've been able to do a pretty good job and keep the area sealed off. Now let's take a look at the area from our live mobile Hawkeye, and you can see what Bobby Ratliff was alluding to a little earlier, how people have kind of bunched up a lot of the rubble that the tornado has left behind. Now, meanwhile, on the south side of the city, dozens of workers and volunteers helped clean up Sunset Park today. Crews cleared countless downed trees and tree limbs from the area using chainsaws and rakes. Now, workers also spread out to nearby homes to help clean up fallen trees and yards that were littered with debris. And many people drove to Washington to help lend a hand.
They're coming from Iowa City. They're coming. The Mennonite disaster services have come in. They're coming in from West Liberty, and I just had no idea this was going to happen.
And authorities say that this cleanup will probably keep going for at least a couple days, and in some areas, possibly a couple weeks. And behind me, just taking a look at that house, you can really see why it's going to take some time. Gerald?
Heartwarming to see all the help. Thank you, Mark. That's TV9's Mark Thomas reporting live from Washington. Although many are feeling depressed and devastated by this storm, it is bringing out the best in some. Volunteers from Washington and surrounding areas are pitching in, as you just heard. TV9's Lori Johnson now continues our First Alert Storm Team coverage. Lori shows us how friendships can grow in the midst of Mother Nature's fury.
Mike McCandless is in the business of rescuing people. He's a paramedic. But Saturday, Mike was the one who needed help after Friday's tornado tore his roof off his house and tossed his garage in all directions. Even though Mike lost many belongings, he has a lot to be thankful for. His pregnant daughter got caught in the storm.
Her whole body looks like she's been sandblasted. She's just covered with red welts and bruises and stuff, and she's fine.
The baby is too. Hundreds of volunteers like Cindy Snadigar donated their time and energy to storm victims like Mike. The damaging spring storm took its toll on everyone.
A heartache. Sorry that it's happened. Anything that I can do to help him out to rebuild again, I want to do that.
It takes more than a terrifying twister to cut down these volunteers' spirits. Many loaded into vans starting at 7:30 Saturday morning.
Right now, you look at every house has 8 or 9 people with chainsaws and everything helping clear all the debris away and getting people back into their homes.
Others spent the day restoring Sunset Park.
I think your camera will tell it better than I can if you just look around and see what the people are doing. I mean, everybody, they just pitch in and go grab something, and that's part of being in Iowa, I guess.
In Washington, Lori Johnson, KCRG, TV9 News.
We're going to start our newscast with more Newscopter 9 video, and this is from the aftermath. And you can see the folks walking around and looking at what used to be houses, just a slab of concrete, and we've seen it other places. And I guess the thing that was most shocking for me yesterday was to realize that we were looking at this video and realizing that it was something that was in our own viewing area, something that a meteorologist never looks forward to. And we hope that you were prepared with our coverage and prepared what we've been telling you over the last several months to get ready for severe weather season. And hopefully this is scenes that we will not see anytime soon again.
I see it.
Newscopter 9 pilot Bobby Ratliff captures an exclusive view of a terrifying twister. 24 hours ago, this tornado touched down in Johnson County near Lone Tree, ripping through cornfields and tearing apart barns.
It's amazing, there's several houses that are completely destroyed. There's nothing left. That we're pulling people out of basements. Most people were really shook up.
It shook up a community of 7,000. When the dust settled, families in Washington came out of shelters to find a scene of utter devastation. The tornado ripped apart homes, businesses, and neighborhoods. Some lost everything, and in the debris, some are now finding a new sense of community as family, friends, and volunteers pick up the pieces. The aftermath in eastern Iowa is our top story tonight, Saturday, May 16th. Good evening, everyone. I'm Gerald Resnick. Many eastern Iowans are settling down tonight after a day of sawing and raking, after a day of cleaning up debris from their shattered homes and businesses. Yesterday, severe weather brought tornadoes to parts of eastern Iowa, and they left behind a path of destruction. It all began shortly after 5 o'clock as dark clouds moved in with heavy rains and strong winds. The system produced tornadoes, and this map shows the hardest hit areas. In Johnson County, 2 people suffered minor injuries. Further south in Washington County, 27 went to the hospital, but only 1 person is still there tonight. Amazingly, no one died. Tonight, TV9's Mark Thomas says the monumental cleanup task started at sunrise.
An army of workers attacked the monstrous chore of cleaning up Sunset Park on Washington's south side. Chainsaws and rakes helped clear the way of debris.
Right there, buddy.
This is amazing. This is great, but this is what Washington does. Everybody turns out, everybody helps.
How you doing? Crews also flocked to nearby homes to clean up downed trees left in the tornado's wake. Many homeowners didn't know who the people were.
I think they're wonderful. Just great friends. I just love them all.
Now, while people from Washington are all across the city helping clean up the mess, so are people from out of town who are all here helping lend a hand. Jim Miller and his crew came up from Brighton to help with the cleanup.
I brought 2 trucks and a skid loader and 3 man up.
So why do all this? Go out of your way today.
Looks like they need some help.
Authorities say the remaining cleanup may take days or even weeks. In Washington, Mark Thomas, KCRG TV9 News, Nightcast.
Most of the people you just saw helping with the cleanup volunteered for the duty. Others were called to action. Upwards of 600 people showed up to help with the cleanup, some loaded into vans early this morning to make the trip to Washington. The Army National Guard called in reserves from Des Moines, and 50 members of the Navy Reserve Center in Cedar Rapids plan to work all weekend long. Everyone who pitched in fanned out throughout town to make sure nothing and no one was ignored.
I think your camera will tell it better than I can if you just look around and see what the people are doing. I mean, everybody, they just pitch in and go grab something, and that's part of being in Iowa, I guess.
People in Washington can expect to see more of that Eastern Iowa spirit tomorrow. Some church groups are planning trips to help out the hardest hit areas. While people in Washington clean up, city leaders are faced with another task. They must tally up the damages and plan repairs that will let people start putting their homes and lives back in order. Tonight, Nightcast reporter Dave Franzman continues our First Alert Storm Team coverage and says damage estimates may run into the millions of dollars.
We don't know whether to pick up big things, little things first, or what to do. We're just shocked yet.
And Alberta Boner says she has no idea yet about the biggest question. Is her 78-year-old stepmother's house repairable? That's a question homeowners and city leaders must confront in the coming days and weeks as they total up the devastation. One city official says at least 100 homes suffered some major structural damage. Half that total may be beyond repair and will get torn down. Tony Lemons lost a garage at his home, but compared to some of his neighbors, he knows he's lucky.
I never lost a piece of glass. Worst thing could happen to my house right now is I could have some roof leaks where the shingles are gone. Where if you look on down here, some of these people just had to leave.
Well, obviously, any damage from the tornado has an economic consequence, but one development director says there was a particular problem with this tornado. Not so much here on the south side where the tornado first struck, but on the north side, many of the housing units hit were affordable housing.
4 apartment buildings just absolutely leveled, and almost all of that was affordable housing, and that's a large chunk of the housing we have for that income range.
Raber says the city hopes to involve many federal agencies in an effort to help homeowners rebuild. That will likely include low-cost loans and other assistance. But what kind of a price do you put on replacing personal items like this? Someone's wedding portrait blown away by the wind. Dave Franzman, KCRG, TV9 News.
Governor Terry Branstad visited the hardest hit areas last night and quickly declared Washington County a disaster area. The tornado that moved through Washington stayed on the ground for a while. Newscopter 9 captured a rare sight, the first live pictures of that tornado moving through Johnson County. There, it damaged farms and fields. Nightcast reporter Jenna Miller has more of our First Alert Storm Team coverage and shows us how one family is surviving with a little help from friends.
There she is, right there.
Kevin Case captured Friday's storm on video as it whipped a wide path through these Johnson County farm fields.
I thought we were going to die.
Dorothy Goody tells the story while sitting on hay bales in what used to be her garage. The storm tore through and tore up her entire farmhouse, a farmhouse Dorothy and her husband Jim called home for the last 33 years.
Then it was over, and I tried to get out from under the debris, and I couldn't. And then, you know, you've heard people before say, you know, there's that adrenaline.
With a rush of adrenaline, Dorothy broke free from under the debris. She stood up here on this white washer, still standing in the basement, waved her arms and screamed for help. She found that help just 50 yards away from 3 people driving by on the road.
I found his glasses.
You found his glasses too? And Dorothy continues to find help from friends and neighbors as they work to pick up the pieces of history.
We really appreciate all the assistance they've given us. Couldn't have done it without them, you know, and I know they'll continue to come until we're cleaned up.
Jenna Miller, KCRG TV9 News, Nightcast.
Here's what the Goody farm used to look like. The owners say they will not rebuild because a new farm just wouldn't be the same. The farmhouse was originally built in 1901. Here's how other damage around eastern Iowa shapes up tonight. In Cedar County, strong hail and high winds tore shingles off homes in Tipton. In Lynn County, high winds blew cornstalk, shingles, and debris onto roadways and into yards in Lisbon. Now, although the storms also hit Jackson, Jones, and Dubuque counties, the sheriff's departments there have no reports of damage.
Now, from your 24-hour news source, this is TV9 News Sunday.
The donations and volunteers pour into areas hardest hit by tornadoes. Helping Eastern Iowa's victims, our top story this Sunday, May 17th. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Gerald Resnick. Eastern Iowans are showing strength during a very difficult time. Hundreds are giving their time, energy, and supplies to tornado-ravaged areas of Eastern Iowa, and the victims need it.
On the ground, I see it. I see it. I see it.
This is the source of all the devastation. Friday afternoon, TV9 Newscopter pilot Bobby Ratliff captured an exclusive and rare aerial view of a tornado touchdown in Johnson County. According to the National Weather Service, winds inside this tornado and others in Washington County reached speeds of nearly 200 miles per hour. Amazingly, no one died, but the powerful winds lifted houses off foundations and smashed others into piles of debris. Power lines snapped, trees toppled. Right away, volunteers asked how they could help. More than 700 showed up yesterday in Washington. Many were back at it today. On this second full day of cleanup, National Guard members say they're starting to see progress. Areas once littered with the remains of homes and businesses are now clear. This afternoon, we have First Alert Storm Team coverage, and we begin with TV9's Mike Wagner, who says piles of debris are now waiting to be burned.
There was a shed here?
Yeah, we had a pacemaker type metal shed there, and we have not found it.
Dawn Tizer grew up hearing how a tornado would never hit the town of Washington. The story is that the town is surrounded by 7 hills that protect it. Friday, people in Washington learned that story isn't true.
They dug someone's roof out of there. All the shingles are still inside.
And pieces of wood launched several blocks away are stuck in the back of her garage. Part of her roof is missing and the walls are starting to bow. The damage is worse than it looks.
Every time I look at my daughter, I feel I'm glad we're alive, but I'm also feeling, yeah, I'm alive, but now I'm starting over.
This foundation is all that's left of Connie Cheney's home a block away. Cheney says her home just exploded when the storm struck. When it ended, her house was in her yard, and she was between these 2 bushes.
I wasn't thinking, I was praying. Now, God, get me out of here alive. And he did. He was watching over me.
Bulldozers scooped and swept away piles of debris. The city has special permission to burn the piles over the next 3 days. What won't burn is going to the landfill. People have donated piles of clothing and food, and vouchers from the Red Cross are helping people buy new things they need.
It's kind of an awakening when you survive, but maybe the only thing you have left are the clothes on your back, and what do I do next?
Many people are looking for missing keepsakes, things blown together by a storm that brought them closer together as a community. Mike Wagner, KCRG, TV9 News.
A truckload of generosity is on its way to Washington County this afternoon. Les Williams of Marion donated his semi and his time. He loaded up donations in the Walmart parking lot in Cedar Rapids. People dropped off food, clothing, cleaning supplies, and personal items like soap and toothpaste. Williams says he and his daughter wanted to do something for the tornado victims.
Well, my 18-year-old daughter started it. She just woke up the next morning after seeing it on TV and just wondered what we could do to help. And then it just kind of snowballed from there.
Williams says he got involved today because he hoped others would help him if he needed it. Representative Leonard Boswell spent part of his day touring the damage in Washington County. He and Mayor Ed Brown surveyed the hardest hit neighborhoods and talked with tornado victims. Boswell is determining how much federal money to send.
Now, from your 24-hour news source, this is TV9 News Nightcast.
In the wake of disaster, a Washington congregation learns a church is much more than just a building, and it finds faith in a community's compassion. That is our top story tonight, Sunday, May 17th. Good evening, everyone. I'm Gerald Resnick. People in Washington and Johnson counties are making progress in what must seem like an unending task. They are clearing debris, and they are rebuilding lives with the help of friends and complete strangers. For the victims, all they can ask is to move forward and to try and forget a moment of terror that hit last Friday. Even churches got hit, and tonight, as a second full day of cleanup comes to an end, Nightcast reporter Jenna Miller shows us how a Washington congregation found faith following a crisis.
Oaks Church. Due to storm damage, we'll be worshiping at the Faith Baptist Church. Love to have you join us. God's doing great things, and we're going to make it.
New Oaks church members made it to Sunday service with a little help from their friends.
I heard, I believe, the pastor himself tell our pastor the very first moment that he got there, if you need another place to worship on Sunday, we can work something out. And I thought, wow.
Barb Ney says that while God will be wherever she worships, she's thankful to have a place to be with others.
We gather a lot of strength from each other, and just having the closeness of everybody there, so we can gather strength from each other's, someplace where we can pray and worship. So, kind of help in the recovery process.
And I'm going, the tornado did this.
Members share their stories and sorrow at the special service. The congregation will worship here until its church is back together, but these folks are glad the people of Washington County know how to stick together.
That's what's the great thing about this town is nobody's really alone.
Jenna Miller, KCRG TV 9 News. Nightcast.
Our team coverage of the aftermath of Friday's tornadoes continues with Newscopter 9 pilot Bobby Ratliff. He joins us live at 5 over Washington.
And Bobby, the cleanup there has really been moving at lightning speed.
And it's amazing because some parts of Washington and Johnson County look like a war zone after Friday's tornado. Now, the tornado touched down on the southwest side of Washington and cut a northeasterly scar through town. Now, in the worst part of town, the destruction did not seem survivable. Miraculously, no one was killed. Let's go to some video of that. Now, in just a weekend, most of the destruction was cleaned up. Now, yards are free of trash right now, and destroyed buildings are only plain concrete slabs, giving it the look of a neighborhood under construction, not one destroyed by a tornado. Now, in Johnson County, the tornado hit mostly farms. Now, the cleanup is slower in the rural areas. Now, that's easy to understand because farms have more buildings and equipment to scatter, but not as many people to help clean up. Now, today, that was the focus of efforts. Fields all over had dozens of people picking up trash, and rising black smoke clearly showed the path of the tornado as the debris was burned. Now, I'll go live outside right now, and this is the evidence. If you take the live outside picture, you'll see this field. Now, this field, trust me, it looked like a county landfill. And after the efforts of volunteers helping farmers, this field is now safe for agriculture. Bruce and Kelly, back to you.
All of that good news to hear. And Newscopter 9 pilot, thanks. Bobby Ratliff reporting live from over Washington. This load of toys and clothes is on its way from one tornado-damaged town to another. Friday, of course, was not the first time a tornado has ripped through an eastern Iowa community.
And now some kids in another town torn up by a tornado want to help kids in Washington. TV 9's Dubuque reporter Ryan Girding says students in Worthington will send help soon.
Most of the kids at St. Paul's Catholic School in Worthington have never even been to Washington, Iowa. But they say they know how kids living there feel. 8 years ago, a tornado cut through Worthington, destroying houses and demolishing businesses. These kids have heard what it's like to have everything blown away in an instant. That's why they're packing up these toys and clothes to go to the children who lost things in Washington.
We're going to take them to the children that had the tornado go pass through their house, which have basically nothing left.
They really lost a lot and they needed a lot of things.
The kids had been collecting the toys and clothes for another service project, but when they saw the pictures and heard the stories from Washington this weekend, on Monday morning, they decided their focus should change.
We've had a tornado come through here, and other people have helped us that time, and then now we can help them.
In addition to the clothes and toys, the students will have a casual day Tuesday. Anyone who brings in 25 cents gets to wear jeans. All the money will go to help tornado victims in Washington.
It'll probably help because it's good to have at least 2 or 3 things than nothing.
And nothing is what a lot of people in Washington have. But thanks to the kids in Worthington, they won't have nothing for long. And that's really something. Ryan Girding, KCRG TV 9 News.
The students at St. Paul's will work with the Red Cross in Washington to get the toys, clothes, and money to the families there. And now back to our top story tonight. The victims of last Friday's tornadoes have started down the long road to recovery.
But it promises to be an expensive journey. The price tag for last Friday's storms has reached $18 million statewide. Today, Governor Terry Branstad said Iowa was fortunate that no one died. One of the hardest hit areas was Washington County. State emergency officials estimate damage there totaled $6.4 million. In Johnson County, the costs of repairs and replacement could reach $6 million.
TV 9's Mike Wagner joins us now live from Washington tonight. Mike, I imagine the construction crews are very busy today.
They are, Kelly. You can see they have a lot of work ahead of them. And earlier today, I watched a roofing crew swarm this damaged roof. Within a few hours, they patched up holes and started nailing down new shingles. The reality of this storm has set in, and people are anxious to begin repairs. 2 hours after the tornadoes blew through Washington, firefighters searched through Lantern Grove looking for survivors. 2 days later, bulldozers cleared away piles of wood, drywall, and debris. Today, only this concrete slab remains.
There's some people we haven't identified yet that we saw hauling all day long, loading and unloading. So this is where it was really appreciated to get it moved from one stack to another.
Volunteers moved into rural areas to continue chopping trees and hauling debris. Neighbors and the Mennonite Disaster Services helped out at Jeff Spenner's house.
It takes a lot of relief stuff off our shoulders to come out here and 50 people, 100 people, tractors and everything come through here and clean all this up. Because it's, I mean, all these barns that were destroyed were just splattered all through here.
Contractors and adjusters are finding more homes that were unable to dodge the destruction with bowed walls and cracked plaster. They're also finding much of the damage isn't as bad as it looks.
When you start having just plain shingles showing up and guttering and that type of thing is the only damage that's showing, and that's a pretty, well, it's a strong indication that that house hasn't moved at all.
The city has burned nearly 2,500 truckloads of wood, shingles, fallen trees, and other storm salvage. When the neighborhoods rise from the ashes, special loans will be waiting.
There's a gap time between the time you actually submit your claim and before you actually get your funds. And what we'd like to do is provide financing so people can actually get money and buy the things that they need until they actually receive their funds from the insurance agent.
Now we have Newshawk video. We'd like to show you exclusive Newshawk video of those funnel clouds as they came closer to the area I'm standing right now. Paul Rickard and his wife were in their home taking pictures of their daughter as she was taking her first baby steps when the sirens went off and they caught the 2 funnel clouds as they came within a few blocks of the area we're standing in right now. It's some pretty dramatic video. In the audio, you can actually hear the storm hum and get louder as the funnel clouds disappear and then reappear as they get closer to this neighborhood. Kelly and Bruce?
Mike, you mentioned a loan program for storm victims there. When is that going to be available?
Bruce, that program is still being coordinated by the downtown banks and the Red Cross. They're saying it could be a couple days. They're saying you should contact the Red Cross or the 4 local banks in downtown Washington if you're someone who is interested in the program.
Thanks, Mike. Mike Wagner reporting live from Washington.
The Red Cross estimates Friday's storm damaged or destroyed 170 homes and apartments there in Washington.